And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious edition of the Assembly Call. Tonight, your Indiana Hoosiers beat the Western Illinois Leathernecks 98-65 in the season opener. The Hoosiers got off to a little bit of a slow start, falling down 12-11, but then blitzed the Leathernecks over the latter part of the first half to take control and really cruised from there. It was a game led predominantly by the likes of Al Durham and Justin Smith, both of whom had career or near career highs in the game, combining for 45 points over the course of the game, in one that really, after the midway point of the first half, IU was really not challenged at all. So a good start to the season for the Hoosiers, who got to get a lot of guys in the game, get some experience. And I think as you looked ahead on the schedule overall for IU, that's one of the things that you really looked at was these are the kinds of games that will allow guys to get experience. And in today's game, Devontae was the only guy who sat out. Rob Phinisee played 18 minutes and looked pretty good in doing so. You could tell more of the rust was chipping off for him. So overall, a game that IU controlled, really out-rebounded Western Illinois and kind of did exactly what you would expect them to do over the course of a game like this based on the competition level. So with that, I'm your host, Andy Bottoms. I'm here with Ryan Phillips and the coach, Brian Tonsoni, and we'll break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. And let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And there were quite a few of those, but I have a longer list than usual of, potential meaningful moments and things like that. But, Justin Smith was a guy that a lot was expected of a season ago and in many ways struggled to live up to the expectations that he made at the end of his freshman season. And I thought this was particularly early in the first half where he was really active off the ball, really active defensively. And there was a possession where he got an offensive rebound off of a missed free throw. He later scored with a little jump hook on the subsequent possession after that. And then the very next possession on defense, he got a steal and a dunk. And for me, that was the banner moment because while we don't think, at least not reasonably, no matter how good we felt about this game, that a title banner is forthcoming for this year's Hoosiers, I think the ceiling of this year's team is impacted a lot by what they can get out of Justin Smith. And short of one stretch where he took a couple potential heat check shots and then made a silly foul before Archie took him out, Justin really acquitted himself well. He played well against Gannon, and tonight 24 points on 11 of 17 shooting from the field to go with 7 rebounds, and all that in just 22 minutes. So, for me, there were probably multiple stretches for him that could have been the banner moment. But if this team is going to really overachieve and sneak up and surprise people, I think Justin is going to be a big part of that, and he was certainly a big part of it tonight. And I'm interested to talk more about what you guys saw from him and maybe even some early impressions of what he's doing differently or better this year than he did last. And our banner moment tonight, as always, is brought to you by, and not brought to you by music because I forgot to start the music, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, which was founded by an IU grad and remains based in Indianapolis. And if you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on over at Home Field Apparel, you really need to go to their website, homefieldapparel.com, as soon as you can to check it out. Home Field still has the incredibly soft, comfortable Bison logo hoodie that Coach is sporting on tonight's show, and it's made out of their soft tri-blend material. In addition to the Bison hoodie and the IU Basketball Champions t-shirt and the vintage sneakers design, which is available in a traditional cut, 3/4 sleeve cut, and a women's cut, Home Field has also been releasing an IU football-inspired design each week during the football season. Feel free to tempt fate by getting the 9 Windiana t-shirt, which now has serious potential to be the greatest called shot in sports apparel history, or consider any of their other unique vintage designs that you simply cannot find anywhere else, and certainly not on material this comfortable. Now here's one final note that you need to know before you order. Because you're a member of the Assembly Call audience, you get a massive discount when you order at homefieldapparel.com. Last year, the discount was 15%, but that wasn't good enough for the best podcast audience in the world. So this year, Home Field agreed to bump it to 20% anytime, whenever you want to order. Just use the promo code Assembly20 to get that discount. That's Assembly20. So again, go to homefieldapparel.com and use the promo code Assembly20 for 20% off your entire order. All right, now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team, who tonight is Ryan Phillips and the coach Brian Tonsoni. And Ryan, we'll go to you first for your rant on the game, potentially other than Bo Borowski entering our lives a little bit earlier than we would have preferred at this point of the season. Anything for you to rant about tonight?
Had that one telegraphed for a few hours, but no, really a nice win. I think that the big focus for me wasn't, I think Al Durham obviously being perfect on the night and dropping 21 is a big deal, but especially considering there was some question about how much he'd play or whether he'd play a few days ago, but he started and played great. You mentioned Justin Smith, really a revelation there. Rob Phinisee looked pretty darn good. Maybe he had some timing issues on passes and stuff, but I think for me, the big takeaway was defense. I really thought that the Hoosiers were active. I thought, and people always say, yeah, well, they were playing Western Illinois. No. Watch their movement. Watch the things that are intangible, the things that don't change based on the opponent, the way that they, react when guys drive, the way that they recover to shooters. Things like that don't change depending on the opponent. Yeah, you might get some more blocked shots and not get as many fouls called on you and things like that when you're playing a lesser opponent. And, if you screw up, you won't be punished as often against a lesser opponent. But the movement on defense, the active hands, the way they would help down and recover, the way that they would, working through screens and not needing a switch, which can wind up confusing the defense and play into the offense's hands as far as pick and roll and things like that. I just thought the defense looked so much better, looked worlds better. And I tweeted it out. What this defense looks like and what these individual players, not necessarily the team defense, but individual players, everybody looked better. And that's what you wanted when you hired Archie Millers. You wanted to import that defense that forces people to the middle of the floor and forces people back to where there's help. I don't know. I really thought that everybody chipped in and played really good defense. And you saw also the benefits of all that size that Indiana has with the 47 rebounds against 28 rebounds. I mean, you just saw how difficult it's going to be for teams to outmuscle Indiana and beat up Indiana, as they've been able to do for what seems like about the last 7 seasons. Just be able to beat up an Indiana team that was so guard-centric. All that size, all that length, and that smarts defensively to help recover, get to the rim, and then, be able to help off the weak side and recover to your man still, help off the weak side, maybe get a block, and then recover to make sure you're not giving up an easy bucket the other way. That was the big takeaway for me. I just thought that they showed such smarts defensively and really played the way that you would want a pack line team coached by Archie Miller to play, and we finally saw that tonight. It's like a lot of light bulbs were going off for a lot of these guys finally, and that's what you expect in the third year in the pack line. We'll see if it keeps up, but that was the thing that jumped out to me the most.
The one area that has to concern us all is the free throw defense that carried IU through so many games last season, 14 of 15 for Western Illinois tonight. So that needs work in practice, but that'll get figured out. All right, all kidding aside, the coach is here with us. So now it's Tonsoni time. And Coach, what stood out to you from the game tonight?
Well, Ryan said it in the chat. It's our first game too, and you notice that Jared is putting us into new positions to see the different lineups and the different combinations of things that can work, from the halftime show to the post-game show and hosting. So, Jared's pulling a little Archie Miller with our group, and so hopefully we can fulfill what he thinks we need to do. For the Indiana basketball team, I'm going to say a couple of things. Team. I think that with the depth and the defense and the offense playing more as a team, more ball movement, more player movement on offense. Ryan mentioned the defense. I thought the stances, the positioning, the effort, and the second and third efforts were fantastic. And those are the things.
How noticeable was that? The stances, and second effort. It
was just great. And I think that, again, you have to relax. And it's the first game against Western Illinois. But as Ryan said, you look for things that are better than last year that will carry over regardless of who you play. And I think there were a lot of things in today's game that will help this team reach its potential, whatever its natural talent will be once everyone's back. And I mentioned at halftime and a little bit on Twitter, on the Assembly Call Twitter feed, I wanted to see if this team's tough. And I think tough teams win. And that's what everyone believed Archie Miller was going to bring. And now that he's got more of his guys in there, would he be able to get this team to be tough? And I thought last year's team was talented, but maybe not together and maybe not tough. And what really showed me their toughness was they handled a 21-point lead at halftime, and they came out and they played all the way up to the end. They made some mistakes. They turned the ball over, maybe a couple bad shots in the second half, but the attitude and the effort was there throughout the second half, and it really showed the coaches as well. The first 3 sets in the second half, inside, attack the rim, get fouled, set the tone for the second half. There was no lull. If there was, it was that second unit between the first TV timeout and the second TV timeout, that scripted set of lineups did not produce very well. I think they were +8. The first 8 minutes of the halves were +8. But I think overall team, this is a basketball team, and that's what Indiana fans want. And I think that it's starting to show some signs of toughness. Always has to improve from game 1 to game 2.
Yeah, it's interesting Ryan talked about the defense. There was a stretch. I need to go back and actually figure out what the time of these was. But it looked like roughly about 20 minutes of game action where they went and didn't allow Western Illinois to score on consecutive possessions. Now, as soon as I started to think about that, Western Illinois scored in about 5 straight. But from about somewhere before the under 12 timeout in the first half to probably close to the under 12 timeout in the second half, didn't allow consecutive scoring possessions by the opponent. So I would agree with you that they were able to kind of maintain that level of focus coming out in the second half. So in terms of the big headlines from tonight, I think a lot of that starts with Justin and Al. So with Justin, I know I mentioned him a little bit earlier, but Ryan, what were your overall impressions of him? And again, it's 2 games, but have you seen anything from him in his junior season that you really think he's been able to sustain over these first couple games?
Yeah, I just think he looks confident and comfortable. I mean, there's no discomfort to his game. I mean, he's out there trying to steal the ball instead of reacting and moving backwards defensively. He's jumping out and looking to dive on a ball and move it forward. We saw a couple breakaway dunks from him that was just aggressiveness. That's all it was defensively, was aggressiveness. It wasn't anything other than that. It wasn't great technique or anything like that. It was just, hey, there's a ball kind of loose. I'm going to go jump on it and go push it and maybe go up the floor. He's just a guy who needs confidence. He has every physical tool in the book. We've talked about this endlessly for the last couple of years. The physical stuff, he doesn't need to work on. His jump shot maybe still needs some work, but this is a guy who can attack the rim with anybody. And then transition, he was just going straight for the rim. He wasn't questioning it. He wasn't holding up. He wasn't waiting for somebody else to take the ball away from him and do something. He was pushing it and trying to get into the paint and get a layup. And there's just an aggressiveness, and you hope that doesn't go away against better opponents. I mean, he knows he's physically more imposing than anybody on Western Illinois, but he's just confident, and he looks like he knows what he's doing out there, and he looks that he knows he can get points and knows that he can attack. Defensively, he was looking to help out everybody because he looked like he knows he's a guy who physically can go pin a ball on the backboard, knows he can be imposing. If he steps in, if somebody gets by somebody else, he can step in and dissuade them from shooting the ball. I just thought that he looked like a smarter, more confident, comfortable player. That was it. That was what jumped out. It wasn't anything specifically about technique or anything like that. It was just he looked like he believed he could score when he had the ball, which is something that we'd only see in fits and starts in the past, where he'd have a stretch of about 5 possessions where he thinks he can score, and then the rest of the game he kind of coasts through it. This is a kid who looks like he's confident, look like he's coming into his own as a junior. He's see.
Locked in. He was locked in all night long.
Because in the past, we've seen maybe one game like that, and then the next game it falls apart, and it takes 3 games to get him back to it. Then we'll see it again. It's about consistency, and I think the same thing would hold true for Devontae Green. We know they can do it. It's whether or not they believe they can do it and whether or not they're consistent in their actions on the floor.
Yeah, I thought, with Justin, it was kind of being engaged, activity level, whatever you want to say. I mean, he had 3 offensive rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. I mean, all of those things speak to me to a guy who really was locked in, as you said, Coach. And the other thing I noticed about him, and I think there's some opportunities for guys to improve at getting him the ball in these situations, but as soon as the ball went into the post, more often than not, he was trying to make a hard cut toward the basket, and that manifested itself in a couple easy baskets. But those guys really have to make sure that they're looking for him. But I thought his movement off the ball has a lot better than what we've seen in recent years. Coach, any thoughts on that aspect of his game?
Well, again, we need to see consistency, and that needs to be game to game now, too. He can't show up the next game and not be locked in, because Indiana's going to need him locked in. And we'll talk stats in the second segment, but he only had 22 minutes with the depth, if I'm reading the box score right. 24 points, 7 rebounds in 22 minutes. But the thing that I saw early was his stance. I'm a big stance guy. If someone's locked in a stance and moving their feet, they might get beat every once in a while because this is an athletic game. But if you make a guy guard your yard, go around instead of a direct drive, and Justin was locked in. And that, he's always been a really better defensive player than offensive player so far in his college career, and we've been really tough on him on the mental side. All of the fans and everyone's been really tough. We have to really give a lot of praise for his mental toughness tonight, and it really showed. And if he can do that consistently, man, this is going to be fantastic. He needs to be more aggressive on his jumper. I think he holds on to it too long and shoots on the way down. He missed a three, missed a mid-range. He did hit a three later. He got his feet set, and I thought that was better for him. So that is the one technical part that he needs to get better. But loved his little jump hook post move. Loved his offensive rebounding and putbacks, getting out on the break. It's just a fantastic effort in game one. We just need to make sure we see it game 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I thought for as much as this team wants to play through, the more noted big guys, I guess, in terms of Durham Davis and Joey Brunk and Trace Jackson Davis, there were a number of guys who were really posting up. Justin's done that a little bit more in these couple games, has made a couple jump hooks. They were even posting up Phinisee toward the end, which maybe was part of who was in the game at that point. But, Race had a nice move inside. So, again, this identity of getting the ball inside is one that we're going to continue to see from them, and hopefully that play can continue from Justin. In terms of other individual storylines, the other big one was Al Durham for a variety of reasons. One, we hadn't seen Al yet this year. Got dinged up at the end of the secret scrimmage against Marquette. Was held out of the game against Gannon, and then as part of the media availability, he was there and said he was ready to go. And was he ever? 21 points, 7 of 7 from the field, including 3 of 3 from 3-point range, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. And again, plus minus in a 1-game sample, you can say whatever you want about it, but he was plus 37 in 27 minutes. So that at least bears mentioning, if nothing else, even if we think that might not mean a whole lot. But Coach, seeing Allen there running the point a bit at the beginning and really shooting the ball confidently, he didn't look like a guy and didn't play like a guy who had been banged up. But what stood out to you from his perfect game tonight?
Well, watching him so far, when we've been able to see him, his shot looks so much better. A lot of arch,
way better,
and it's soft at the rim, and he's just playing with confidence. And the thing I think that Indiana fans, again, in a game like this, what you take away are those things that are going to carry over. I think Indiana's always been ranked by all the national media at their floor. I think we're seeing Justin Smith way above his floor from what he performed last year. And if Al Durham can be consistent in how he played tonight, that's going to be an increase in what maybe people expected from this team talent-wise. But Al was very confident. I thought he handled the point guard really, really well. If you wanted to find something, I think a few decisions on the break, and I think the whole team, the transition offense decisions were not great. Some were okay, but overall, I would rate that maybe at a C. Their decision making on the break, even though the pace was good. But Al was a reason. He's been working at the point guard. Everyone wondered, could he play the point guard? And now with Phinisee and Al playing at this level, that just gives a lot of flexibility to running an offense to Coach Miller. So his game offensively was great, and I thought defensively, he held his own. And we'll see it when we play tougher competition. But Al Durham playing the way he did, it was just fantastic to see in game one, especially with the limited guard depth early in the season.
Yeah, Ryan, anything in particular stand out with Al? The other thing I would mention is, he was really active defensively at the beginning of the game. The announcers even made mention of it, to Coach's point about being in a stance. And, they said he kind of looked angry out there, which I think is a potentially good sign for a guy who's usually smiling quite a bit. But anything additional that you wanted to hit with Al?
I mean, I just thought that he was great. I thought, especially early when things were kind of, there was a bit of a struggle, obviously first game and the first couple games, you're going to have those early struggles and you're going to have the opponent take the lead early on and it's going to be like, oh, what's going on? And then, things will settle into their rhythm. Same as in the exhibition. I thought he really settled them down by hitting a couple shots. One of them was a long two that I think he meant to be a three. I don't think he was intending to shoot a long two, but he hit back to back a three and then a long two. And then he hit another three on the break. And he was very confident with the shot and very confident with the ball in his hands. He's, again, a guy like Justin Smith who knew that I'm better than the guys on the other team. I'm going to go take it to them and make them defend me, as opposed to I'm going to figure out how to get around their defense. No, make the defense react to you, not the other way around. And I just thought he was aggressive and smart and moved the ball when he needed to, drove when he needed to, passed when he needed to. And to finish the night, 7-7 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3-point range, 4 of 4 from the line, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, it was a well-rounded effort, and I was impressed with how he played and the pace he played with, and how definitive he was in his movements and things like that. It wasn't just he wasn't just trying to defer to other people. He was, I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to go and I'm going to find a spot and I'm going to make you pay for the way you're defending me. And that was the way, quite frankly, Al Durham should be playing and should have that attitude, especially because, look, with the depth this team has on the interior, we're going to need some guards to attack as well to help open that up, help open the interior up for them. So I thought it was real encouraging to see that from Al, especially this is Al at 100%. And he and Phinisee both are not at 100%, but I thought both played pretty well. And I think it's hilarious to look at the box score, and obviously plus minus isn't everything, but Al is a plus 37 on the night. And I think that that is indicative of how he played.
Also indicative of you not listening when I had said that a minute ago. So
no, I know.
Indicative of many things, but that's fair.
Can't I reiterate what you say and make you look better by agreeing with you?
Oh, you're so benevolent. I appreciate it. All right. Well, coming up, we're going to continue. All right. Coming up, we're going to continue our breakdown of IU's 98-65 victory over Western Illinois. We'll point out the meaningful moment you might have missed and go inside the numbers when we come back here on the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
All right, thank you, Jordan. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Ryan Phillips and the coach, Brian Tonsoni, and we're breaking down Indiana's 98-65 victory over Western Illinois. And now it's time for today's meaningful moment that you might have missed. I feel like I usually struggle to come up with these, but I thought there were, maybe because so many guys contributed at various points today, I felt like there were a number of these. I'm gonna use one of them to touch on Armand, who didn't score as much as he did in the exhibition game, partly because Al was back, I think, but ends up with 5 points, but added 5 rebounds and 8 assists with no turnovers. And I thought one of the things he did really well, there was a point earlier in the game where IU gave up a basket, and it definitely seems to be, I kind of go back to what Mike Roberts said going into halftime of the exhibition game about how they really wanted to push the pace. And I thought you saw that from them tonight in a lot of cases after made baskets. So this is some point in the first half. They give up a basket. Armand pushes it up, and basically within a few seconds of the shot clock turning on, he's giving it to Joey Brunk for a layup. And I thought that was indicative of IU's mindset in the game. And as Coach mentioned, I thought there was some maybe not great decisions at some of the times when they were really trying to push it. But you did see a level of aggressiveness after makes and misses. And I thought Armand embodied that really well, that he did a nice job of, pushing the ball, got a lot of guys open for easy shots right by the basket just because of his willingness to push it. So Coach, we've had, a couple games where we've watched Armand, I think both impressive for different ways. And for me, you continue to watch him, and then it kind of feels like you're one of those where you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube at some point, where you've kind of seen enough of him that while doesn't mean he's going to start when everybody's healthy or any of those kinds of things, but I think he's really carving out a role for himself based on what he's doing on the floor.
Yeah, and as a freshman coming in, there's two types of freshmen. There's freshmen that are going to play early. There are freshmen, or maybe three types, that are going to play after the non-conference season. They get their feet wet, they build, they learn the game, and then there maybe are those freshmen that have to learn all freshmen a year. And I thought Franklin might be someone that would just ease their way into some playing time as the season went on, and then would be there and be a 10 to 14 minute guy in the meat of the Big Ten schedule. I think that's going out the window. I think his play early due to the injuries has forced him to learn, but he's again like Rob Phinisee last year, where we said the same thing, that Rob was going to have to back up Devontae and get his feet wet. Well, Rob just started right away and played well. Now, the minutes will, but when you college game, regardless, and you get 27 minutes, 8 assists and no turnovers, and you play the style of defense that you play, then I think he is a contributor from day one. And then those worries about guard depth, still there, obviously, with the injuries, but that helps quite a bit, ease some of those injury concerns. And then when everyone's happy, or we're all happy now, but when everyone is back healthy, then I think, boy, there's some rotations that you can do with Armand. I thought he took a couple questionable shots. I think I saw Archie get on him one. He pulled up over two people when he didn't really have a shot, but that's going to happen in the game. And in fact, you kind of want some of those because you want aggressiveness. You don't want players to be passive. So Armand's really been a surprise to me. Not that he couldn't do this, that he's just doing it earlier than expected.
Yeah, in 27 minutes, he looked really good. 8 assists, 5 rebounds, and he looks confident. He looks like a guy who thinks he belongs. And again, I know I keep saying that about a few of these guys, but there have been times over the past few seasons where guys do not look like they belong and do not look like they think they belong. Physically, they'll be there, but mentally, they just don't look like they're ready to attack, look like they're ready to play in the system, look like they're not questioning every move they make. And Franklin does not question the moves he makes. He is aggressive, and he is, ready to prove himself. I think that a guy like Al Durham, when he stepped on campus, kind of reminds me of Franklin, where a lot of people were like, well, he's a 3-star. He's got to work on his shot. He's got to do this. He's got to do that. And Al Durham came on campus and said, no, I'm going to play, and did. And proved that he needed to be on the floor. He did it through defense first, and the offense has developed. I think Franklin looks like a guy who's balanced both ways. I mean, I don't think he's going to sit there and hit pull-up jumpers or knock down threes consistently or anything like that, but he's a guy who fits, and he's a guy who looks like he can play. And to play, as Coach said, 27 minutes and no turnovers when he was handling the ball is just wildly impressive. And I just think that, especially, and also only 2 fouls, to not foul that much as a freshman is, shocking.
After his 7 in the secret scrimmage, that was a concern.
So he just looks like a guy who, again, is comfortable and confident, and that might be the key to this team. We're starting to see it emerge is, Al Durham looks confident, and he did last year, but he looks even more confident, looks like he's comfortable with his role. Armand Franklin looks like he belongs. Justin Smith looks like he belongs. Rob Phinisee, we expect that. But even with the injuries, maybe we expected him to look a little uncomfortable. Nah. Race Thompson, I thought, looked really good out there. He only scored 4 points, but grabbed 6 rebounds, looked like a presence on the interior on both ends. There's just guys who look like they are ready to play. And that wasn't the case last year, and it wasn't the case the year before. These guys look like they are here not to just be on the team, but play and contribute.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple other guys that I had jotted down some moments for it, and Jared actually put a few in the run sheet as well. So let's touch on Phinisee first. I do want to get back to Race. There was a play in the first half that Rob was defending somebody out kind of close to half court, dove on the floor. Again, I think a good sign for a guy who's battled some injuries and really still looked rusty at times tonight, but you could start to see a little bit more of his kind of normal game. So he did that. Eventually, Justin Smith ends up with the ball for a dunk. After that, Jared touched on a kind of heat check 3-pointer that he took in the first half, which he kind of mentioned was good to see because he was confident enough to take it. And then just being able to come back in the second half, he said he noticed him walking a little gingerly at a couple points. I thought he might have started to cramp up a little bit at the end, hoping that maybe why he looked the way that he did there. But I thought you at least started to see him get back to more of what we envisioned for him as he moves into his sophomore season. He ends up with 14 points, made 6 out of 10 from the field, 3 assists, did have the 3 turnovers. I thought he was one of the guys sometimes in transition, knowing when to let up a little bit. But overall, Ryan, I thought that he, again, he's a guy who hasn't practiced a lot, but you could start to see some of the rust shake off tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you expected from him, though, right? I mean, he's just always so consistent, and I don't know. I just think that what did you think, Coach? I mean,
yeah, I always go. I'm a defensive guy. I like the way he came out. If you're hurting and trying to just get through the motions and get some minutes in, you're not going to give that kind of effort on defense. And his stance and diving on the floor, and I think he got beat some that he won't get beat when he's healthy. But that shows me a lot. And then his aggressiveness offensively is something that this team needs, not just a distributor, but he can score. I think 14 points in 18 minutes, and we know those minutes are going to go up with his health. This was a great sign because a week ago when Archie said he's having trouble getting to practice almost at all, you thought he was going to be out till mid-December till he was back healthy, and he's looking like he's closer to that than what we thought.
And he stepped into 2 threes confidently. I mean, He made 1 of 2, but stepped into 2 threes confidently. He didn't have a ton of assists, but I thought he moved the ball really well. I think that assists on this team are going to be a group effort. You're going to have one guy with 8 one game and the next game he'll have 1. But they're all going to be moving the ball. And that's what I thought with Phinisee tonight, is that he moved the ball really well. A couple turnovers. I thought all the turnovers were sort of quick passes that maybe, where maybe he there was one that was a no-look bounce pass that he threw where he looked off and threw it. And it was just like the timing's not there on that stuff yet. And a couple of his other passes that were one of his other passes that was a turnover was just, again, timing is not down yet. But
he looks rusty in his decision making. Like he sees the opening and then it's just a little late, or he's too quick or something. And that's from not getting those practice reps.
Agreed. And I think that he's the guy who if he's efficient this year, it's going to be a huge boost to IU. And he was efficient tonight. 6 of 10, 3 assists, 2 rebounds. Did have the 3 turnovers, but I thought moved the ball really well on offense. And especially for only turning in 18 minutes, I thought it was a really nice shift from him tonight. And hopefully he just develops, he continues to develop a comfort with the injury, coming back from the injury. So, I thought it was a positive for Rob, especially, early. I thought that as the game went on, you could probably maybe see a little bit of fatigue kicking in the second half, but I really thought that he came out well.
Yeah, I think for him, it was good to see him be able to play more minutes. In some ways, in my head, when it was clear that Al was going to be available, you kind of wondered if those two would just kind of swap out and maybe Rob wouldn't play a whole lot. So I thought that the fact that he felt well enough on the heels of, kind of playing and presumably practicing more since the other exhibition game, that was a positive. So Coach and I both had something for Ray, so we'll have to see if we ended up with the same moment, but I did think he had some moments as well. The one that I wrote down was Phinisee missed a 3. Everybody kind of stood a little bit, and Race chased it down in the corner, ended up getting fouled, made both free throws, which was just an added bonus given how the free throw shooting had gone in the second half at that point. And then on the next possession defensively, and I think this is where you really see him potentially making an impact. I think Western Illinois, and we're going to see tons of teams do this, we're trying to put Brunk and Davis in a lot of ball screens. And Race on the subsequent defensive possession really did a good job of rotating back and basically made a good enough defensive play to prevent a basket from a guy right in the lane, just by being aware and being in the right spot in the rotation. And I thought, that summarizes the kind of thing that he can do and that he can bring to the table really well. So, Coach, you nodded as I was saying that. So I'm assuming that one of those, we hit on the same one.
12:59 offensive rebound in the corner was exactly the one that I had written down. Race is going to be those guys that is one of those guys that's not going to necessarily surprise you on the stat sheet, but those little things add up. And that's a free 2 points by his hustle from under the basket on the opposite side. I think he had to track that down. He did not give up on the play, and that's 2 points for Indiana. In tight ball games, that's going to mean a lot, as well as the defensive coverage. And I think once he gets up to – I think you got two guys in Hunter and Thompson that once they get their feet wet in playing collegiately and the scouting reports and getting those feels, you'll see those minutes go up because they do a lot of things that Indiana needs. They're just – got to get into the flow of college basketball after being out for so long due to the injuries.
Yeah, I think talking about him here gets to a point that I know Ryan was making in the chat around the balance on the team. And, we've kind of gone through and highlighted a couple really strong performances from Justin and Al, some contributions from, guys like Rob and Race. And I do think whether that's a true winning formula that you can have a team that's going to play, 8, 9, 10 guys and maybe it's not the same guy night in and night out. I guess that remains to be seen whether that can be effective for this team. But I do think, Ryan, as you mentioned in the chat, that the balance on this team is definitely one of its greatest assets in the absence of a true kind of standout star or whatever you want to say. So what did you see tonight that made that stand out to you in particular?
Well, there's a lot of interchangeable parts, right? I mean, Race Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis, Jerome Hunter, even in the post some tonight. I mean, there's a lot of guys who can do a lot of things for you. And I just think that, look, I mean, you had 4 guys in double figures tonight. 2 of them had 20 plus with Durham and Justin Smith, but then you had Trace Jackson Davis with 8, you had Jerome Hunter with 7, you had Race Thompson only had 4, but had 6 rebounds and in 14 minutes and played really well when he was in there. I mean, there's just we talked about even a year ago that this roster shaping up the way it was going to shape up was going to be a very balanced roster. There wasn't going to be one star who leads the way. It's going to be a balanced roster, and there's going to be contributions from a lot of different guys. I mean, Joey Brunk got you 11 tonight. How often in Big Ten play is he going to get you 11? I don't know, but Deron Davis also only played 8 minutes and had 2, and we know he's capable of getting 15 in a Big Ten game because he's done it before. So I just see there's a lot of guys who can help you every night. It's like hockey line shifts. I mean, that's how deep they are, is they could literally change all 5 guys on the floor and he'd still feel pretty good about it because there's guys who can contribute at different levels. I mean, Trace Jackson Davis, you leave him in for 30 minutes tonight, he's probably pushing a double-double. He had 8.6 boards, but, he's probably getting you 4 more rebounds and at least 2 more points if you leave him in for another 8 to 10 minutes. So I just think that there's different guys. There's a lot of different guys who can contribute. And when you get Devontae Green back, that's yet another guy who can really contribute. When Deron Davis can run, for a full 15, 20 minutes, that's another guy who can really contribute. When Jerome Hunter gets used to playing college basketball, that's another guy who can give you more than 16 minutes if he needs to. And maybe those 16 minutes will be better than the 16 he turned in tonight. So I just think there's a lot of depth on this team, and there's a lot of depth that can contribute. I mean, it's useful depth, not just guys who you can run out there to pick up 5 fouls. I mean, there's useful depth on this team. And, that's what I mean when I say balance, is that when you sub Trace Jackson Davis out for Race Thompson, you're not rolling your eyes at, oh God, what are we going to do now? You're getting a legitimate guy who can come in and contribute. And we haven't seen that in a while. I mean, when there's that much depth on the team, and that depth can be detrimental because, some guys don't get enough playing time and don't develop fast enough. But you look at this team and you feel like these are all guys who can contribute. They all need to be in there.
All right, well, let's go inside the numbers. And as you might suspect, in a game where IU scored 98 points and won by 33, there are a lot of positive numbers on the IU side of the ledger. We touched on the rebounding. I guess a couple things from a team stat standpoint that I'll lead off with. One of them is this is the second straight game, if you count the exhibition game, where team didn't shoot a lot of free throws in the first half and came out and shot a ton in the second half. Just seemed to be, it speaks to a little bit.
They wore them down.
Yeah, I mean, they could kind of get the ball where they wanted, and I think to Coach's point, they really came out in the second half and exerted their will on him and put it away. So IU gets to the free throw line 21 times in the second half after getting there just 4 times in the first half. Made 15 of them, so 71% in the second half and 68% overall for the game. It was kind of ugly at the beginning of the second half. It was kind of a make one, miss one, but they eventually did a good job there. By the same token, shot just 2 3-pointers in the second half, ended up 5 of 11 from 3 for the game. Again, I think that fits in with a lot of what we talked about. They're not going to be a team that shoots a lot of volume, but hopefully they're quality shots. And I think for the most part, they were. There are a couple of, kind of heat checks that I would put in there. And then the turnovers, 11 in total for the game, 7 in the second half. They had 4 in the first, I think, 11 possessions. I think I tweeted out at some point, IU, the first 11 possessions, they had scored on 7 of them and turned it over on the other 4. And one of the Crimson Cast guys, tweeted out, like, if they're going to score on basically 2/3 of their possessions, like, I don't care what they do on the other third, which to some extent is fair. And I think, in my view, most of the turnovers felt like being aggressive, almost overly aggressive, as opposed to just being sloppy.
Yeah, they weren't team turnovers because there was because there was going to be a shot clock violation or something like that. They were.
No, that was definitely not. There was no risk of a shot clock violation, I would say, at any point in this one.
They were trying to make something happen, which I'll always accept. It's like an offensive foul. If you're going towards the hoop, there's sometimes where it's stupid and you need to slow up and not do that. But if you're in the half court and you get a charge for being aggressive and going for a layup, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, Coach, any of those stats stand out to you, or anything else to look at that as you look down the box score stands out to you?
Well, if you just go percentages, 45% from 3 and 68 from free throw, you got to like that. You dig deep into the team stats, though. You win the bench points, you win the points in the paint, and that's probably going to happen against Western Illinois no matter how you play. But I do think the aggressiveness of Indiana was really something they can build on, even as the opponents get tougher. And I think they took advantage of what they could take advantage of. I just really love that 3-set start to the second half. We're up 21. Let's go into the post. Let's ISO for Justin Smith. But I think that adds when you're, you have something to take advantage of and get to the foul line, then you see good stats. 11 turnovers, 18 assists to 11 turnovers is something as well. And I think in these blowouts, guys, there's 2 ways. You can win against competition like this and play bad and win by 20, 24 and think that you're headed in the right direction. And then it's the style of way you play. And as Ryan said in his opening, the intangibles. And I think all of these numbers on the stat sheet show that there are things that Indiana, if they are consistent and can keep getting better at, will make them very competitive in the games as the season goes on. And so despite the opponent and that, I think you can go right down the line and find all kinds of great numbers. I'll go back to the rebounding, though. You had four people with 6 or more rebounds, and you had 2 guards with 5 and 4. I think, again, rebounding after the first game was an emphasis, and they came back, and I thought they did an outstanding job on that as well.
Let me just go with one. You mentioned the 3-point shots, and there were only 2 in the second half. They didn't need to shoot threes. They were getting anything they wanted. They were either going inside and either getting fouled or scoring at the rim consistently. So, they didn't need to back it out and shoot a 3 or kick it out and shoot a 3. They were just getting whatever they wanted at the rim. So it wound up really working out. I agree with you. That needs to be a little more balanced. I mean, 5 of 11 on the night looks good percentage-wise, but let's face it, they're not going to only shoot 11 3-pointers in games this year. This was the fact that they just had such a dominant size advantage. So guys are going to need to knock those down. But I mean, really, it was fine with me watching it. But the other thing was I thought that stood out to me was, as Coach said, the rebounding advantage. I mean, to out rebound Western Illinois, was it 47 to what was the other? What did Western
28.
Illinois? Yeah, so 47-28, just absolutely maul them on the boards. This team's going to have to win with that this year because of the size and the limitations in the backcourt as far as depth goes. So you're going to have to see that. There's a lot of size, a lot of length on this Indiana team, and they're going to need to win in the paint.
Yeah, the other couple things that I saw, these are largely on the defensive end. 20 points off of 12 turnovers, so we need almost to get 2 points off of every turnover, at least come close to it. Held Western Illinois to 7 of 24 3-point shooting. That was something that was an emphasis for them. I think in listening to the Crimson Cast preview, there were a couple guys on Western Illinois that had shot it well last year. Didn't really think anybody got into a rhythm. Even some of the ones that they made were, one was banked in, one's the one at the end of the half. So those were a little bit flukier in nature.
Andy, that's good pack line defense too. Not getting driven, being able to tag someone and recover quickly. And I know there's some talk out there about 3-point defense is not necessarily whether you play good. It's whether the shots and all that kind of statistical analysis. But I thought the defense was better in contesting shots and making people uncomfortable. That hasn't been there as well as needed in the past. So I think that's a good stat to bring up and something to watch as the competition gets tougher.
Yeah. Other thing from a team standpoint, fast break points 31-5 for IU. Some of that is aided by the turnovers, but some of that again is the overall aggressiveness that I felt IU showed in really pushing the ball. In terms of individual stuff, I feel like we've hit on most of the big ones. You had as Ryan, I think you said 4 guys in double figures, plus Trace with 8 and Jerome Hunter with 7. So you got 6 guys with at least 7 points. You guys talked about the balance from a rebounding standpoint, and you saw a lot of guys play. Looks like 5, 6, maybe 9 to 10 guys played at least 14 minutes. So again, there can be complaints about the early season schedule and things like that, but in a lot of ways, tonight's game showed why you would schedule that way. Because for a team with trying to integrate some pieces who either are new to the team or haven't played in a while, it did present a good opportunity to get a lot of guys game action, and I think you can go down the list and find a contribution from just about everybody. But
if you got a team full of seniors and juniors, it doesn't matter how difficult your early season schedule is. But this makes a difference, I think, giving these guys the confidence as they play.
Yep. Coach, any other individual numbers stand out to you, or are we ready to move along to game balls?
Let's just talk a little bit about Joey Brunk. 11 points and 7 rebounds in 21 minutes. And if there's a quiet thing, he's just tough. He just finds himself around the basket, good position on a fast break to post up and get something early. He just does a lot of little things, and that's what we've heard about all summer. And that is showing by example as well as his leadership, vocal leadership. You can see why Joey Brunk is a good addition. He's not gonna be a style guy, but he's going to be a guy that really shows this team how to play. And I think that's an interesting stat line. And it just wasn't a dominant, but that's real close to a double-double if he gets a few more minutes. I think that's a nice individual stat line to look at.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. I thought it was kind of a mixed bag with him for me. Yep. I mean, I think all of his shots were, off of good feeds from people or offensive rebounds where he's right by the hoop. Took the one kind of crazy turn on, fall away shot, whatever.
Never do that again, Joey, please.
That was, yeah. I mean, that could have gone up in the, in the rafters with the Jeremiah April shot though, had that gone down. But I thought for him, early in the game, it seems like he was allowing the Western Illinois defense to really make him catch the ball way too far out on the floor. And in our community, Jordan Sperber had done something and kind of talked about how challenging it was for guys that really needed to rely on backing people down through multiple dribbles to be able to do things. And I think there were times that Justin Smith would cut to the basket. He was either late to see him or didn't see him. But I did think he played better in the second half. I think he has a good understanding of positioning and how to get himself where he needs to be as a guard is driving to the basket. And I think the other thing to watch with him, and this is no different than Durham, who was one of the guys who didn't play a ton of minutes tonight, is we're going to continue to see teams test them in ball screens to see what they can do. and I thought there were times when he did an adequate job from a coverage standpoint, and there was others where it really kind of got everybody else in rotation. So I thought it was kind of an uneven night. Ryan, you were kind of nodding a little bit when, at least some of those things I was talking about. But
you were right. You're right in some places. No, you're
right some of the time.
Yeah, you're actually spot on. I texted you guys earlier. I was like, Bronk is shaky. Like he was, losing the ball, not catching it great, getting in weird positions. He had 2 turnovers, which for a post guy, and they were early for a post guy. That's not good. But he really settled into the game, I thought, as it went on. And again, he's an Indiana guy playing his first regular season home game at Assembly Hall. I mean, you get it. And there were a couple guys who came out a little hot early. I thought Jerome Hunter came out a little hot early too, just kind of not settled and not, focused necessarily on the right things. And so I would say that Joey really settled down. And in the first half, I was especially early in the first half, I was a little concerned with how he was playing. And, it's like, we expect a lot from this guy. We've heard a lot from him. Let's see what happens. But he really kind of let the game come to him in the second half. And I thought he was much better around the basket in the second half. I thought he was much better defensively in the second half, snagged 7 rebounds, finished his coach said with 11 and 7, and really settled into the game. But yeah, that beginning, I was not super confident in what we were seeing from Joey Brunk. But again, it's early season. We're going to repeat that over and over again for the next few weeks. It's like, hey, it's early. A lot of guys are playing or used to playing, all this stuff. We're gonna see them settle in, and hopefully we see more of second half Joey Brunk moving.
Yeah, I don't think with him it's not lack of effort or understanding. I think you're seeing a little bit of a guy who played in a different system for a couple years and is starting to adjust and figure out what his role is really going to be here. So I kind of shared some of your fear, I think, in the first half, but I think you did see.
Kind of like, wait a minute, because Joey Brunk is the last guy you expect shakiness from.
Well, I think the hard part is, yeah, I think, but there was a little bit of that would happen in the offseason where everybody would kind of point back to like, yeah, but look at what he actually did at Butler and what some of the numbers were, and how does that really jive with a lot of the praise that he was getting or what he was being praised for in the offseason. So I think you're seeing a little bit of that where, I think some of the things that he does are a little bit more intangible, which,
sure,
as cliche as that is to say, I don't know that he's a guy that's going to light up the stat sheet at any given point anyway. So,
yeah. And my point was he's a lunch pail guy and he got 11 and 7. And it didn't, it wasn't anything bright or
didn't stand
exciting.
out for sure. Yeah.
Even his, he had a dunk, but it wasn't like TJD dunk, but, and you gotta like those guys that can improve within the game as well.
Hey, you need guys like Joey Brunk on a Big Ten roster. You just do. You need a lunch pail guy who's going to work hard and not mind taking some hits and taking some bumps for you, and continuing to get up and get after it.
All right. Well, coming up on the assembly call, we're going to hand out our game balls and hit any other lingering storylines. Look ahead to IU's next opponent. Then it will be time for last call. That's all next here on the assembly call. Stick with us.
This is Nick Zeisloft. I never miss an open 3, and I never miss an episode of The Assembly Call.
You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free IU Hoops newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed to our email list. You can also text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. That's IU to 66866. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Ryan Phillips and the coach Brian Tonsoni, and we are breaking down Indiana's 98-65 win over Western Illinois. And now it's time for game balls. So, a lot of guys played well in this one. I think there are probably 2 guys that are potentially top of mind for everyone here. So Ryan, I'll throw it to you first.
I'm taking out Durham, man. Perfect game. You do not, just like in baseball, you can't diss the perfect game. I thought Justin Smith was great, but I'm going without Durham. I thought the spark he provided early kind of set IU on the path to blow it out to about a 20-point lead at halftime. and I thought that the timing of that was great. I thought Justin Smith, I know he's going to get votes from some people, for sure deserved. He played a great game, but Justin Smith with Al Durham was 7 for 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 21 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, only 1 turnover. He's my guy this week.
Coach, how about you?
All right, so I'm going to throw it to you, Andy, for the deciding vote.
This is exactly how I feared this would play out. Yeah, I definitely should have used my host powers. I should have used my host powers, but
I have no problem with L whatsoever. But I'm going to go with Justin Smith. I've been very critical of Justin and his mental focus and that, and I just thought that he was locked in defensively from the start. I thought offensively he was fantastic, and that's just really good to see, because that just makes Indiana that much better. And a career high, 24 points, 11 of 17, 7 rebounds, was active rebounding the basketball, only 2 turnovers. I think that effort gets my game ball, with a mad respect to L on the perfect offensive night. And it's more Justin defensively too. I think is why I'm going with Justin.
I feel like I should just pick a third guy and then split the vote, but I will not.
And then go to the chat mob.
I will not abstain and do that. Yeah, I'll have to let you guys say what the chat mob is saying. I'm gonna go with Justin. I think one of the things that I liked, I alluded to this a little bit in the
perfect game. I am shocked at you, Andy Bottoms.
Yeah, I know. What are you gonna do? I'm sure you're not the first person I've disappointed today, so don't worry about it. So I think, with me, I think it was a lot of what Coach said, just seeing him that dialed in for that period of time. I think the other thing that I really liked was it started with something that I didn't like, and I alluded to this in the beginning where, he took a couple, the first 3 that he took was not a good shot. There was another jumper that wasn't necessarily a great shot, and kind of reflected him, getting a little bit away from what had made him successful early in the game. And then he kind of came down, I think was frustrated with himself, made a reach-in foul, and then Archie basically took him out right away. And I really like to see that from Archie. And as much as anything, I liked how Justin responded after that, because he came back in the game and got back to what he was doing at the beginning. He did eventually hit that 3-pointer, but really ran the floor well, continued to play well on the defensive end. And I think, some of those kinds of things where somebody gets on him in a first half of a game last year, I don't know that he responds in the same way as
gone into his shell,
as what we saw. So I think that's we're all in the, 1 game sample size scenario at this point to, overreact to anything and everything that happened. But I think that from a mental standpoint, given especially what you've talked about with him, Ryan, with just a, confidence factor and the way that he thinks the game and some of those kinds of things, I feel like that was, I was excited to see that from him and the way that he responded to that challenge.
We're catching some grief in the chat mob.
Yeah, people following the chat on the YouTube feed are
outraged.
Are rebelling against Andy's choice. But I will say this: I thought both were worthy. I just gave it to Al because of the spark he provided, the time he provided, and he was perfect on the night. You gotta go.
I will I'm going to hold those guys in the chat room who feeds them on football Saturdays. So don't get too loud in the chat room. I'll cut you guys off.
Well, the other thing I would say is, last year I felt like there were some games where we didn't have anyone to pick, so maybe we just hold over this performance from Al and give him a retroactive one at some point later in the season if the situation should arise. But that being said, so next up for IU, next up for us is Assembly Call Radio on Thursday night, where we can talk a little bit more about this. Maybe we'll get Jared's thoughts around who he would have given his game ball to, and then probably Al, quite frankly. But nevertheless, and then next game is Saturday, I believe at 2 p.m. Eastern against Portland State. So the football Hoosiers have the weekend off, so no conflict there. So they play at 2 o'clock against Portland State. For those of you who don't know a lot about Portland State, you can join the club. As I look in KenPom, they are ranked preseason about number 275. At least that's what it is right now. Picked to finish around the kind of lower middle of the pack in the Big Sky Conference. So not a ton that we'll know about them in terms of whether they were playing Puget Sound tonight in what will be a sure good tune-up for IU.
Sounds like a barn burner.
Yeah, last year they really struggled defensively. They ranked 314th in adjusted efficiency, so should be another game where a number of IU players can do well on the on the offensive end. The one thing they did exceptionally well, though, because it was not shooting the ball, where they also ranked 319th in effective field goal percentage, number one offensive rebounding percentage in the nation a year ago, and did a good job, ranked 60th at free throw rate getting to the line. So if there's anything you want to look at, this preventing offensive rebounds feels like it should be something that an IU team with this much size should certainly do well at. So, that remains to be seen, but that'll be, potentially a test for them in that regard, as you look down, although it would, looks like, most of the guys with a couple of the guys with high offensive rebounding marks for them last year were seniors, but there was a couple of juniors who, did well on that end as well. So, if there's anything to watch in that game, it will probably be, what happens on the glass, because it feels like another case where, IU should be able to get a lot of guys going offensively. So with that, I think anybody else we need to hit? We haven't talked Trace yet. Probably worth giving him a couple minutes. I felt like this was a game when, and I know Ryan, I think you brought this up earlier. Maybe he could have had double if he played longer. It felt like a game where he could have just scored whenever he felt like it. Just to kind of, I think all of his
physically the best player on the floor, no question.
Just physically overmatched whoever else was there, and I thought rebounded the ball well for for somebody who. We expect that of, but I feel like Archie had made some comments in the preseason that wanted to see him improve there. So he had 6 rebounds, 5 defensive, 1 offensive there,
and he probably could have had a couple more, but his teammates snagged ones that were going to him. I mean, it was a free for all on the glass, really, for IU tonight.
Yeah. Do you guys think that he looks more comfortable right now with his back to the basket when he can make that little Sigma move and face up and dribble in to his left hand? I think you wonder if he'll get more run at the 5 at sometimes instead of that two post. Because boy, when he was at the 5 and at the 12-minute mark in the first half, when Indiana made their run to put some distance, I really liked that lineup, and I think that frees him up a little bit more to do what he does. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets some runs solo at the 5 instead of kind of being force fed at the 4.
Yeah, I think he'll get some time on the block at the 5 when IU goes smaller, and I think Hunter will get some run at the 4 as a result of that. And even a two-headed monster of Trace and Race Thompson at the forward spots is a real possibility. So I think that there's going to be a lot of mix and match lineups. I think that's what the next couple games are going to be about, is figuring out who does what, where, with who, and where the chemistry lies. But yeah, I thought Trace was great tonight, and the blocks. Were all fantastic. He threw 4 blocks. I mean, the kid is a monster from the weak side, and he's going to continue to be a monster from the weak side for as long as he's on campus.
Yeah, I do think that'll be one of the things to watch from a lineup perspective. Is what can what are Joey and Durham able to give you on either end of the floor, and do they struggle at times enough defensively where you need to go small and do that? And I think those can be effective lineups for IU, particularly with Justin Smith playing the way that he is. You can slide him at the 4, Race Thompson at the 4, as you mentioned, and the guards, those who have been healthy have played well. And I think you'll see Jerome Hunter eventually be able to, slide to that rotation as he continues to knock the rust off. So I think you can get by with a lot of things in some of these early games, and once the competition starts to ratchet up in December, I'd be curious if you see more of those lineups where Trace is playing the 5. All right, you're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show, and remember that because you're an Assembly Call listener, you get 20% off of your entire order at homefieldapparel.com with the promo code Assembly20. So if you want a great deal on the most comfortable and unique IU apparel that you'll find anywhere, go to homefieldapparel.com and use the promo code Assembly20 for 20% off your entire order. All right, guys, it's time for last call for the night. So Ryan, why don't you take the first one?
1-0, baby. 1-0. That's the takeaway tonight. I thought they played really well. In the Archie Miller era and in the Tom Crean era, there were a couple early season games that were too close for comfort, and I thought that Indiana just took care of business tonight. It was workmanlike. They overwhelmed, overpowered, and just overworked Western Illinois from about the 10-minute mark of the first half on. And I thought it was just exactly what you wanted to see out of this team. You've got a size advantage. You've got a length advantage. Just attack and grind that team down. And you saw it. Western Illinois just absolutely ground down in the second half. And it was exactly what we wanted to see out of these guys. And seeing Al Durham get to play and play as well as he did, seeing Justin Smith jump off the page, and then seeing Rob Phinisee, who, a couple weeks ago, maybe like a week and a half ago, we didn't know how long he was going to be out and how long it was going to take him to get back into the rotation. Played 18 minutes, scored 14 points, looked good. And obviously his timing will get better because he hasn't been on the practice court as much as some of the other guys. But we still got Devontae Green coming back too, folks. I mean, this is going to be a good team, and it's going to be a balanced team. It's going to be a team that can attack on multiple levels of the floor. I don't think, if you're an Indiana fan, I don't see how you could be anything but excited after this. These guys did exactly what they had to do, and they come at you in waves from different angles with different guys. This is a really talented team, and I think they're going to be fun to watch over the next couple of weeks as they sort of develop into their own, and then hopefully they're up to where they need to be when Big Ten season kicks off.
All right, Coach, over to you.
I think we need to watch how this team plays more than what the results are. And tonight was positive. They played well offensively, played well defensively. Yes, you're going to be able to find some areas that they need to pay attention to, and Archie and staff will get going on that right away as they get ready for Saturday's game. But I was really impressed, as I said in the opening, the team aspect, and that's the depth, and that's the ball movement, and that's the sharing the ball, that is the tagging on defense and helping each other on defense. It's all of that. And that was really good to see that plays later on in the year as that even gets better within this season. So watch how they play in the next few games. Not so much who the opponent is or what the final score is. I think that's important. I will remind listeners that the replay will be on the Big Ten Network Thursday morning at 9 a.m. if you want to set your DVRs, or better yet, just skip work, and stay home and watch it and call in late. I have some days off. I may do that again. But enjoy this team. I think it's going to be enjoyable. There will be some bumps along the road, but what a good way to get started, as opposed to maybe winning by 12 or 15 and having a lot of issues and wondering about this team. I think this team has some upside, and it's good to get the season started.
All right. And for me, this team in general is really intriguing to figure out how it all comes together. As I was rolling out my preseason bracketology on Inside the Hall, there were a lot of questions about IU and either why they weren't in or what kind of held them back in my eyes. And I tried to summarize that today, and I thought it was, something that I really tried to watch for tonight. Basically my point was that the overarching concern about the roster is that it just doesn't have a lot of guys that what you're going to get from them on a game in and game out basis. And that ultimately kind of held me back from saying, yeah, I think this looks like a tournament team, or this is going to be a tournament team. And I think that possibility is there. And so these early games for me are a way to try to figure out, like, who are those guys going to be? And tonight, and even in the exhibition, Justin has really played well and looks like a little bit of a different guy. It's a two-game sample, so you hesitate to make too much of that. But if you can continue to watch these games through that lens of, kind of what you said, Coach, of how do they play? So what does he look like? Is he, take plays off, or does he really come and bring it for an extended period of time? Do we see that kind of shooting and confidence from Al, on a night in and night out basis? And do we see Rob getting back to be a guy that, we saw at the beginning of his freshman season and was derailed by injuries, and hopefully not derailed by injuries again, and just trying to see how all the pieces fit together. So this is, the first step in trying to figure out who are this team's guys that we're going to count on night in and night out, that are out there. And so it was a positive start for a lot of guys. I think a balanced effort, and the balance is something that we're going to harp on over the course of the season. But you need a few rocks that you can, count on game in and game out. And so tonight kind of sets the baseline for some of that, and then we'll figure out from there who those guys can be and how they can step forward. So while the competition might not be the best in some of these games, to me, those are the kinds of things to watch for, to really see what is established over the course of the early games that's going to hopefully carry in to December when the competition gets tougher, and into January when Big Ten play hits full swing. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. If you want to hear us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to longtime listener Bob Thompson, who produced much of the music you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Thursday night.
Take it from me, Freddie McSwain Jr. Keep your elbows in, your eyes on the rim, and man, go up and dunk the ball. Go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.